Okay. So, welcome guys. My name is Jamie Hendricks. I'm going to be your instructor and in-flight presenter for SAT and ACT prep course. Just a little housekeeping. Restroom, you've got one in the back here. There's also one in the drama room across the way. Just watch your step going in and out of that room. There's like a little riser thing. There's also, if you want something to drink, there's a fridge in the kitchen in the back, and there's a donation box. So feel free to help yourselves. Okay, so cool. Fun times ahead. As we go, if you have questions, please, please, please ask me. That's what I'm here for. So we're going to talk about what's on these tests, what you can expect to see. We're going to talk about how they fit into your bright futures, how they fit into school, how they fit into college applications, all sorts of fun stuff. So a lot of basic info tonight. We're also going to give you some info about the class as well. Okay? All right. So first we're going to talk about what the SAT is. So we're going to talk about both the SAT and the ACT. Your SAT, and you'll see on these slides, it'll tell you like what page we're in the packet if you guys can read that. It's a little small. But we're on page 1 of your packet. So what's the SAT? The SAT is an exam designed to assess your readiness for college. Oh, you know what? I didn't even tell you anything about myself. Maybe I should start there. Probably should start there. So I've been doing SAT and ACT prep for, oh God, I got to do math. Hold on. I'm used to doing math with sines and cosines. I got to think about this arithmetic thing. I've been doing it since 2005. So what is that, 17 years now? So in that time, I've seen a lot of changes, especially with this booger, especially with your SAT. Okay, we've gone through 4 different incarnations of the SAT in that time where they've completely revamped the test and completely changed it, which means I've had to rewrite my bloody program 4 times. A little bit of a challenge with that, but that's okay. I also do other math prep. My background is math and science. I have a physics degree, an engineering degree, and a math minor. So what makes that woo, wow, English hard. Okay, let's put the words in the right order. What then makes me qualified to teach you reading and grammar? Well, my mother was a reading and grammar teacher for 42 years. Okay, I can diagram a sentence with my eyes closed. 90% of the time, a student's reading problem isn't reading. A student's reading problem is grammar. Okay, because we don't teach grammar in the state of Florida. I was also the editor for the newspaper at my college, and I did a lot of writing for them. So as far as teaching you reading and grammar, yeah, not a problem. We can do that. Any questions on my background? Okay, cool. All right, I also taught for Sylvan for a while. They actually sent me away. That sounds horrible. But they sent me away to learn how to train their teachers on their SAT program. I came back to this area. I trained their teachers on how to teach their program. As we were implementing their program, I saw things we could do better. So we changed the program and started doing things better. And the statistics proved we were getting better results. Well, Sylvan didn't like that. It wasn't the Sylvan Kool-Aid. And they said either change it back or see ya. And I said, see ya. So that was when I left Sylvan and started doing things on my own. Okay, and that was 2005. I heard the door. Excuse me for a second. Come on in. You're good. Are you here for the SAT thing? No. Oh, never mind. Then
I was gonna say, I don't think you're what I'm looking for.
No, probably not. You're good. Not ours. Okay. All right, so now let's actually talk about the SAT. So the SAT exam was designed to access your readiness for college, or to assess your readiness for college. It's written and administered by a company called College Board. We're going to talk more about them in a minute. It was started in 1926. The last major overhaul occurred in 2016. There is another major overhaul coming where they're going to turn this thing totally digital. Okay? Anybody graduating in 2024 or later? Is that you guys? Okay, so it's not going digital until spring of 2024. So our goal is going to be to have everybody done before that change happens. Okay, so that's going to be our goal, is to not have to deal with that change. All right. So the idea behind the SAT is to, and we're going to talk more about that digital full switch in a minute, but we'll deal with that later. So the idea here is to provide colleges with some kind of common core criteria to be able to assess students and like give them some way to compare students for admission to college. let's talk about College Board. Let's talk about this company. College Board is an interesting animal. They have a for-profit sector and they have a not-for-profit sector. Their not-for-profit sector does things like administer the SAT, administer your AP exams, and provide all of the test materials for that, okay? Their for-profit sector does things like publish college textbooks, okay? They publish education materials like Springboard. Do we all remember the gloriousness that was Springboard that you all had for a while in the public education system, okay? That was College Board, okay? They also publish a lot of SAT prep materials and AP prep materials. That's all in their for-profit arm, okay? So now let's follow the dollars for a minute. Let's think about this. It is to their advantage that you do not do well on this test, okay? The worse you do, the more college classes you're going to have to take. The worse you do, the more times you're going to take this test. The worse you do, the more prep materials you're going to buy, okay? So what does that mean for us in terms of test prep? It means we don't buy their prep materials because then we're only going to know what they want us to know. We are much better off to go to an outside third source, someone like the Princeton Review, the Big Black Book, Kaplan, anybody else. Just go to that outside source and get everything because they're going to tell us everything. They're not just going to tell us what College Board wants us to know. Okay? Make sense? All right. So that's a little bit about College Board. ACT. Let's talk about the ACT for a minute. So the ACT is an alternative to the SAT. You don't hear about it a whole lot down here, but that's a regional thing. We'll talk about it more in a minute. Like the SAT, this is an exam that's designed to assess your readiness for college. It's written and administered by a company called ACT. They're not real creative. They're out of Des Moines, Iowa. It has been around since 1959, so it's not a new test. It also has remained in the same format since 1959. This sucker hasn't changed, okay? So what does that mean for us? That means we have a wealth of data, okay? We have 8 million practice tests for this booger. ACT company, all they do, they're a not-for-profit, all they do is write this test and they compile academic statistics for people to study. That's all they do, okay? So they're a pretty simple company in terms of what they do and how they're run. All right, so we've talked about what these tests are, who they're made by. The other thing I really want to emphasize to you is what they do. What do they do to your brain? So this is on page 2 of your packet. You have some bullet points in the middle of your packet on page 2. So let's take a look at those. If you can't read this small print, again, look on page 2. These tests make your brain work differently, okay? Here's your normal test question. This is something you might see in school. This is not something that's going to be on your test. So your normal test question, you got scores for 5 kids on a recent exam. They were 84, 89, 71, 92, and 84. What was the average score? All right, John, I'm putting you on the spot. How do you find an average? Yeah, piece of cake, right? Doesn't do it. Okay, basic problem. No worries. So now let's look at your working backwards question. This is a problem that might show up on your ACT. It'll never be on your SAT. Working backwards question, the average score on an exam was 84. The scores for 4 kids were 84, 71, 92, and 84. What was the 5th guy's score? This one's a little more challenging. That's a pen. Aha! Give me a marker. But we can still solve this. It's just going to take a little algebra here. No big deal. Okay. We got 84, 71, 92, and 84. I need number 5. No big deal. I'm going to take what I've got, add it. No, I'm not. Nope, I'm not. And I left my markers at home, of course. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 84 plus 71 plus 92 plus 84 plus x, so those 5 things on the top, divide by 5 equals your mean, equals 84. So really all you're doing there is a little bit of algebra, okay? So it's just algebra. You're still, oh, I'll get that later. So you're still only solving for one thing. It's just one little unknown, okay? Does that make sense to you guys? It's just one thing to find. It's not bad. Again, that would be on your ACT. It would never be on your SAT. Okay, let's look at the thinking differently question. This is what these tests make you do. The average score on an exam was 84. If the scores for 3 of the kids were 84, 71, and 92, what was the sum of the remaining 2 kids' scores? Do you see how that's different than the other ones? You're still technically only looking for one thing. You're looking for the sum. I don't have to find both kids' scores to do that. I just have to find the sum of the two. And that's where it makes your brain work different. I only have one thing to find. It's a sum. I don't have to find both. We're actually going to solve this when we do the math portion of the program. But do you see how this is different from these? Okay. All right. So this is what these tests do to your brain. That's how they make your brain work differently. Okay. Now students, I know you guys already know this, but parents, I hope now you see what your kids are up against. Okay. All right. Everybody's brain can work differently. It just takes some training. Okay, so you all can do that, so it just takes training and patience and practice. All right, let's do some myths versus reality. Now these start on page 2 of your packet and go to page 3. So let's look at myth number 1. Myth number 1, now these are all things that people have come to me and said to me, and I've either had to research them or I've looked at them and I've said, what? And then had to debunk it. So myth number 1 is that the SAT and ACT is a good test of my intelligence and my scores are a good indication of how well I will do in college. That's absolute garbage. Okay, these tests do not test your, let me just run down a list of what they don't test. They do not test your IQ. They do not test your general knowledge. They do not test how well you will do in school. The only thing they test is how well you can take the test. That's it. Okay, that's all they do. Unfortunately, there's no other metric, so we're stuck with them right now. More and more colleges are recognizing that these are not a good metric. There are over 2,000 colleges nationwide now that are test optional, including all colleges in California, Colorado, and Illinois, all state schools. In fact, in Illinois, if you send in an application with your scores, they automatically reject it and tell you to resubmit without it. Okay, so again, more and more schools are recognizing that these are not a good metric. Will Florida be on that bandwagon? I doubt it. We'll probably be one of the last. Okay, so College Board, this is their quote about SAT. Of course, they think their test is fantastic, and yes, it's a good metric, but we know differently. ACT, again, also says the same thing. Yes, it's a good metric. Reality is the only thing they test is how well you can take the test. All right, this is more about myth number 1. The reality is absolutely not. I call it absolute shenanigans. Now, I'm not the only one saying this. The Princeton Review also says that they're not big fans of these tests. I mean, these are the guys whose books I recommend that you buy, right? I mean, they make a killing selling these books. They also have their own prep programs out there. So they make big bucks doing their own prep, and they're even saying that it's not a good metric. Barron's, Kaplan, Sylvan, a lot of other places that sell SAT and ACT prep say the same thing. It's not a good measure of how well you're going to do in school. It's just not. And then again, what I've said before is that they're placing less emphasis, and over 2,000 schools have gone test optional. If you are looking at a school out of state, okay, all colleges in the state of Florida are requiring SAT and ACT, okay? Now, one or the other. If you're looking at a state, check with the school, okay? A lot of schools out of state have gone test optional through 2025, through 2028, due to COVID. So if you're looking out of state, you may not even have to take tests. So make sure that you check on that, okay? All right, there was something else I was going to tell you about this, and I really don't remember what it was, but it'll probably come to me later. Any questions on test optional schools? Okay, cool. All right, myth number 2, the SAT and ACT test complex math concepts. Absolutely not. There's nothing on these tests above Algebra 2. There are 4 trig questions on your ACT. All but 1 are going to be SOHCAHTOA. Students, y'all know what I mean by SOHCAHTOA? No? Okay, we'll fix that. Don't worry. We'll fix that when we do trig. So SOHCAHTOA should be something that you would have learned in either geometry or the end of Algebra 2, depending upon when you took it. They kind of switched it from one curriculum to another. So even the trig portion is not something you learn in trig. It winds up being something you learn in either algebra 2 or geometry. So there's 4 trig questions on the ACT. There's 4 to 6 trig questions on your SAT. Again, all but 1 are SOHCAHTOA. So even the trig is not something that's taught in trig. It's something that's taught in either geometry or algebra 2. So there's that. Myth number 3. This is one I get told quite frequently, and I really can't figure out where it came from. You can't really improve your reading score. Like what? Of course you can improve your reading score. All right, there's 3 ways to improve your reading score. Number 1 is very boring. Comprehension. Just practice. The more you practice those god-awful long, boring passages, the better you're going to get at them, okay? The good news is I'm going to teach you a way to do the reading section where you don't read the passages. I know it's counterintuitive, but it works. So we're actually going to do reading without reading. So, yeah, because I don't like them any more than y'all do. The next way to improve your reading score is your vocabulary, okay? Now, all right, so when us parent types took the test, we had to memorize thousands upon thousands of words. And they were weird words. They were like obsequious and loquacious. They were horrible. You all don't have to do that anymore, okay? All the vocabulary now, the way it's tested is word and context vocabulary. So what that means is they're going to take a relatively everyday word, but they're going to use it in a weird way. So they're going to pick one of the obscure meanings of that word, and you have to figure out that obscure meaning. So what's the best way to practice that? It's to read and encounter words you don't know. Once you find those words you don't know, get the meaning of that word you don't know from the words around it. Word and context, okay? Now, what does that mean for you guys? It means you can read anything you want, as long as you're finding words you don't know. So read something you're interested in. If you're into sports, maybe go find something on sports technology or sports medicine, because then you're going to find words you don't know. If you're into mechanics, go to Popular Mechanics, okay? If you're into medicine, oh God, just pick a medical journal, okay? Whatever, if you're into fiction, that's fine. Read fiction, but crank that difficulty up a notch so that you find words you don't know and then have to find the meaning, okay? Any questions on how you can improve your vocab? All right, that's going to be your most efficient way to get that number up. The third way to improve your reading score is actually not to improve your reading score. It's to improve your grammar. Because your reading score on this test is made up of 2 sections. It's made up of your reading section and your grammar section. Okay? If you don't know grammar, and if you've lived in Florida your whole life, you haven't been taught grammar. So usually most students who come to me with a low reading score, it's not because they can't read, it's not because their comprehension is low, it's because their grammar score is in the tank. So usually by fixing grammar, we up your reading score. Okay. Any questions on how you improve your reading score? Cool beans. All right, myth number 4. It's better to leave a question blank than to guess. This used to be true. Before 2016, there were penalties for answering a question wrong. You got points subtracted from your score. This is no longer true. After 2016, no penalty for getting them wrong. Make sure you fill in an answer for every question, okay? And that's true for both your tests, SAT and ACT. Myth number 5. Males do better on the SAT and females do better on the ACT. This one's actually partially true, believe it or not. So historically, if we look back over the last 50 years, men have done better on the SAT than women by about 50 points. Plus a statistical chunk. We'll take that. Now, let's think about that though. If we're talking 50 years ago, men had better access to education than women, especially in those STEM fields, those math and science fields, okay? Also, the SAT, if you look at an SAT from 50 years ago, there was a lot of gender bias in that test, okay? So that created a major problem. Now, if you look back just over the last 5 years and look at the statistics, oh no, we're neck and neck as far as scores go, okay? So what has happened as far as bringing those scores for women up, and the men's scores have kind of dropped, unfortunately. That's not really something we want to see at all. But what has happened to bring those scores even? Kudos to College Board. They've taken the gender bias out of the test. And I don't praise them very often, but I'll give them praise for that. They're not my my favorite company, but we'll give them kudos for that one. And then also women, of course, have better access to education now when it comes to the STEM fields. So the combo of that really has brought the scores even on the SAT. As far as the ACT goes, it doesn't matter. If you look back over the last 50 years, it's been even all the way through. They've been within 0.1 points of each other all the way since 1959. Okay, so how important is this test? Well, it's really important. So it's very important and not so much. Okay? It's just a test. Nobody's gonna die. All right? I've had kids have nervous breakdowns over this. Please don't do that. Okay? It's just a test. It'll be okay. Now, how important is it in terms of your college education? Depends. It depends on where you want to go. Okay. Anybody looking outside of Florida? Okay, that simplifies things in terms of how we talk. Okay, let's talk large school versus small school then. So, everybody going for bright futures? Yeah? Okay, again, that simplifies things in terms of how we talk. Okay, so let's talk large school versus small school in terms of getting in, because even if you get bright futures, you still have to get in the door. So, large school versus small school. The larger the school, the more this number is going to count. Now, let's think about that logically. If you start talking about your big schools, UF, FSU, USF, UC, some combination of U and F and a miscellaneous other letter that makes a school in the state of Florida, okay? Any of those big schools like that, they get thousands upon thousands of applications, right? Okay? What's an easy way to sort those? With a number. Yeah. You either make the cut or you don't. You go in one pile or the other. Okay? That's why that number is important to those big schools. It's an easy way to sort you. Okay? Your small schools, they're going to have the time to take a really good look at your overall application. They're going to look not only at your scores, they're going to look at your extracurriculars, they're going to look at your volunteer hours, they're going to look at your sports teams, they're going to look at everything else that you bring to the table because they have the time to do it. The big schools just don't have the time. So the larger the school, the more this number counts. Make sense? Okay. All right. Psst, computer. You want to do the thing? Hey, all right, there we go. Okay. You also have other things that you have going on. You have your academic factor. So, you know, what are your grades like? What's your class rank like? Okay, all of that plays in here. Class rank is an interesting animal. Newsom is a hard one. Where do you go to school? Bloomingdale, okay. So Newsom is a rough one in terms of class rank. Bloomingdale is pretty competitive as well. Not quite as bad as Newsom. You guys got some people with some stupid high GPAs. Like, well, I have 8 AP classes this year. Why? Why are you doing that? Are you suicidal? What the hell is wrong with you? Okay, Strawberry Crest is another one. That IB program, again, you guys have some ridiculously high GPAs. So that makes it really hard in terms of your class rank. Anybody looking at UF? You are. Okay, so let's talk about UF for a second. So UF has a quota system. They're the only school in Florida that has this lovely quota system. They only take a certain number of kids from each school. So let's say your class rank is 23. Okay. If they're only going to take 12 kids from your school, and you got 12 people in front of you that decide to go to UF, you're not going. You're not getting in. No matter if you do meet all the other requirements. So, and they're the only ones in the state that do it. Okay? So, and we never know exactly where that quota is going to fall because, of course, their numbers from year to year fluctuate on how many kids they're going to take that year overall, right? What their class size is going to be every year. If you ask them, if you out and out ask them, do they have this quota system, they'll tell you no. However, yeah, there was an admissions counselor that got fired, and he's been rather helpful at leaking information. So just be aware that that's out there when it comes to UF. So if you're like, I got an awesome GPA, I've got a great class rank, I've met all the SAT requirements, I've done everything I can, and I still got rejected, don't feel bad. It's probably that stupid quota system. Okay, it's probably nothing to do with you. Okay. All right. I wonder if this is dying. There we go. Okay. Extracurricular factor. Any extracurriculars, of course, help you. You know, the more you do, the better off it's going to be, especially leadership roles. If you have some leadership roles, that's really going to help in your favor. Scholarship potentials, of course, we want that bright futures. I mean, if you can go to school for free, for God's sake, go to school for free. Okay? I am living proof of people who don't go to school for free and what it does to you financially. Okay? I grew up in Iowa. We don't have bright futures up there. That's just not, it's not a thing. Okay? When somebody says something to me about bright futures down here, I went, who and the what now? And they explained it to me, and I'm like, why do people not take advantage of this? So, because I do have some students who are like, oh no, I'm going out of state. I'm like, why? So I graduated in 2001. I will be paying off my student loans until I am 67 years old. My student loans are more than my mortgage payment every month. You do not want to be in my boat. Okay? So I always tell my students that story because I'm like, I am living proof that you want to stay in the state of Florida and use your bright futures. Parents are like, thank you. Okay. All right, so this is a test breakdown. This is on page 4 of your packet. This is just an overall test breakdown. Your ACT on the left, your SAT on the right. They both have 4 sections. Your ACT has English, which is grammar, math, reading, and then science, plus an optional essay. We're going to talk about that optional essay in a minute. Your SAT, you have reading, writing, and language, which again is grammar. Math, you have 2 sections, your non-calculator and your calculator. As far as time goes, there's only 15 minutes difference. They're pretty close. And then scoring. Your ACT is scored out of 36 points. They scale everything to 36. That's their magic number. I have no idea why. Your essay is scored completely separate. You get between 2 and 12 points. Your essay does not affect your overall ACT score in any way, shape, or form. Your SAT is scored out of 1,600, 2 sections of 800 apiece. Okay, so that's just an overall quickie breakdown. Let's talk about the reading test. So your reading test, up at the top, these numbers are your overall test. So don't look at this and go, oh my God, the reading test is 3 hours long. No, 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 no. This is your overall test time at the top, okay? So reading test for your ACT, it's section 3. For your SAT, it's section 1. For your ACT, it's 35 minutes, it's 40 questions. For your SAT, it's 65, it's 52 questions. Your questions are not in order on your ACT. They're not in order of appearance in the passage. On your SAT, there generally are in order of appearance in the passage. So if you find the answer to question 4 in paragraph 3, then you know 1 to 3 are somewhere up above it, unless it's a main idea question. Okay? So that kind of helps you find things. They're both passage type, passage-based. You guys have taken a reading test. You know what it looks like. If you've taken an FSA, you know what these things look like. Your topics are very, very similar. They both have 1 fiction. Your SAT, you have 2 history of social science, 2 physical science, and your order is going to vary. They're going to mix these up. Your fiction one is usually first. Your ACT, this order is always the same. You always have fiction first, then social science, then humanities, and then natural science. Always in that order, never changes. Your ACT, you're going to find, is a very rigid test. Now, your reading tip of the day. You don't need to do these passages in the order that they give them to you. Okay? These tests are designed for you to run out of time. So you're very likely to run out of time on this reading section. If you're going to run out of time on something, let's run out of time on the thing that's hardest for you, because that's probably where you're going to get some wrong anyway. So do these passages in the order that's easiest to hardest for you. So for example, if I'm going to be doing this SAT, I'm a science person. I'm going to do these 2 physical science passages first. Then I'm probably going to do these history and social science things, and I'm going to do that fiction one last, because fiction just kicks my butt. Okay? What did the author mean by the significance of the brown spots on the cow? I'm like, I don't know, ask him. He's dead. Hold a seance. I don't care. Okay? So that would be my order. Determine that order before you walk into test day and stick to it. It's going to make your life easier. Okay? But again, we don't read it. All right, grammar. Let's talk grammar. Your ACT at section 1, your SAT at section 2. As far as like what's on these tests, guys, these guys are identical. Okay, as far as topic goes. They're structured the same way. Punctuation, it's punctuation, it's word choice. The only thing that's different is that in your SAT, just like in the reading section, you guys will have some data, charts, and graph stuff on your SAT. Basically, the SAT Test Makers College Board was like, how can we put science on the SAT? I know, we'll put it in the grammar and the reading section. Why? I don't know, but that's what they did. So that's where they put these graphs and charts things. That's the only difference. Otherwise, these tests completely overlap in terms of concepts and grammar knowledge. The elephant in the room when it comes to the grammar section on your ACT, though, is this right here. You have 45 minutes to do 75 questions. You got a book. You got to move on that. You took it. Did you finish it? Good job. Anybody else take the ACT? How'd you do? Did you finish this one? You did too? Excellent, sir. Most people are like, you know. Yeah. Yeah, it's 36, I think it breaks down, I have it actually in your grammar packets. I think it breaks down to 36 seconds per question. It's brutal. Like, it's brutal. So grammar tip for the day, the shortest answer is usually the right one. So if you're down to a couple of answer choices and you're like, well, they both sound right to me, pick the shorter one. Heck, if you don't have a clue which answer is right, just pick the shortest answer is probably right. Okay, and that's true for both SAT and ACT. All right, let's talk math. See, you could, by coming to a free thing, even if you wind up not coming to the class, if you change your mind between now and next week, you still get tips for the test. All right, math test overview. ACT's over here, SAT's over here. Your ACT, it's 60 minutes, it's 60 questions, it's all calculator, it's all multiple choice. Okay. And then here's your breakdown as far as what's on it. Again, very rigid, they never stray from this. Your SAT, it's section 3 and section 4. It's a total of 80 minutes. It's a total of 58 questions when you put both sections together and combine your multiple choice and those lovely grid-ins that everybody's so fond of. And again, here's your breakdown as far as what's on it. Now, if you pick up any SAT test, you will see that they rarely, if ever, actually stick to that. So I'm not sure why they put it out there. But it'll be relatively close. But usually what we do, we use this information to tell us what to study. So what winds up being important here are the first 3 categories. That additional topics in math is not very important because it's only 10% of the test. We cover all of it, but we don't spend as much time on that last one. Okay, math tip for the day. Your questions are not in order of difficulty, so don't panic if you get stuck like on number 2. It's not a big deal, okay? So neither test, your questions are not in order of difficulty. Now, what your ACT has started doing over the last 2 to 3 years, they have started saving questions 50 to 60 for some harder stuff. It's not anything that they've announced, it's just something, it's kind of a trend that we've kind of noticed, okay? So 50 to 60 on your ACT, they might be a little more challenging, but otherwise, all mixed up. Okay, science test. Let's talk about that science test. Now, this is only on your ACT. So this is usually the elephant in the room when it comes to science, or when it comes to your ACT. Everybody's like, oh God, science. It's really not that bad. It's not really science. It's reading comprehension with a science base. Okay? I've been doing this a long time. I've had 3 questions. I've had 3 questions in 17 years where you needed outside science knowledge to solve them. Otherwise, it's all there. Everything you need is there. It's either in the charts and graphs or it's in the passage that they give you. It's just a matter of learning how to interpret what they're asking and spit back the correct information. Okay? It's all about interpreting those graphs. It's all multiple choice. It's non-calculator. You're not going to need your calculator to calculate anything. But it's all about charts, graphs, and research summaries. You don't need outside knowledge. So if you're afraid, you're like, I was not good at biology. Oh man, chemistry, please no. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know anything about it. Okay? Plus, it's probably not going to be about biology or chemistry. It's probably going to be like nuclear physics or, it's going to, or geology. It's going to be about something you've never seen before anyway. So don't worry. It's not a problem. So science tip for the day, it's all about the graphs, guys. Let's talk about that essay. Anybody here want to go into journalism or writing or some kind of related field? All right, cool. Then here's what you need to know about the essay. You only have to do it once. The only test you can do it on now is your ACT. It used to be on the SAT as well, but they did away with that. And ooh, now you're working too good. Reverse. Okay. So the only no. Technology. Okay. The only test that it offers on now is the ACT. They did away with the SAT essay in 2020, I think late 2020. Here's the deal. There are some private scholarships out there that require that you've done it. Okay? There are also some private colleges out there that require that you've done it. If you're not going into journalism, it's a checkbox. Did you do it? Yeah, okay, check the box. So at some point, you might want to do it. All the public schools in the state of Florida don't care about that. You don't need to do it if you're going to a public school in the state of Florida. Okay? But if you're applying for a private scholarship somewhere, it might become important. Okay? Any questions on that? By the way, it's not going to be hard. It's going to be like, is cheating wrong in school? Why or why not defend your position? Okay, we're not talking about, analyze Beowulf or anything horrific. Okay, and then the tip is that you only need to do it once unless you're going into journalism. All right, so which test should you take? The short answer is you really should take both. Now let's look at the long answer. Really. All right, that's fine. I got it. I'll do it this way. So the short answer is you really should take both. The long answer, let's look at some key differences between the tests. First of all, ACT questions tend to be more straightforward in most people's opinions. Where this really shows up is in your math section. I'm going to show you a couple examples. So example 1, here's your SAT question. This is a trig question. So in triangle ABC, which is not shown, AC is perpendicular to BC and cosine of ABC is 12 over 13. What is the value of tangent of ABC? Look at how many words they use to ask this question. Here's an ACT question. What is sine of theta if tangent of theta is 3 over 4? These two questions ask the exact same concept. In fact, you're going to do the exact same procedure for both of these things. Look how much shorter this is than that. Okay? Much more straightforward question. All right, y'all see the difference? Yeah, okay. All right, here's another example. Here's your SAT. Now, these are both about transformations. So moving shapes or moving graphs on the XY plane. This is your SAT over here. This is off a 2019 test. The graph in the XY plane of the equation above is a circle, true statement. If the circle is translated downward a unit such that the circle is tangent to the x-axis, the equation becomes this lovely mess. What is the value of A? It's like, oh, God almighty. I heard about this question before I even saw it. This was an in-school test. Okay, this is one of the freebies they gave in school. That very day, I had students coming to me at Starbucks. You're not going to believe this stupid circle question. I go, oh, great. Okay, so this guy, number 44, this is off your ACT. Same concept. The graph of y equals the absolute value of x minus 6 is in the standard xy coordinate plane. Which of the following transformations, when applied to the graph of y equals absolute value of x, results in the graph of y equals absolute value of x minus 6? Okay. And then they give you options because, of course, the ACT is all multiple choice. Okay, now I realize parents, this may look at gobbledygook on both of them. However, I can tell you that the wording on the ACT, this is much closer to the wording that the kids see in school than that. Students, would you agree with me? Do you think this is closer to what you would see in school than this? Yeah. So they're used to seeing things that kind of look like this, whereas this wording is not normal to them. So again, more straightforward, closer to school than this. Okay. All right. So that's the first difference, is that your test questions when it comes to your ACT tend to be more straightforward. Your second difference is that your SAT has a stronger emphasis on vocabulary. So if you're a real wordsmith, your SAT is going to be better for you. If you're not as much of a wordsmith, your ACT is going to be the better way to go. Now, this used to be really, really obvious. If you look at older tests, there's a major difference. The tests within the last couple years, though, I'd say probably since 2020, this has been evening out. So I'm not sure if the SAT is coming down or the ACT is coming up, but they're coming closer together on this vocab. Okay, difference number 3, your ACT has a science section, which your SAT does not. Again, we've talked about this science section. It's reading comprehension with a science base and a bunch of charts and graphs. So this is not a real game changer. However, if you're an absolute science phobe, then you might want to stay away from your ACT. Difference number 4, your ACT test does have more advanced math concepts on it, but your SAT has that non-calculator section. So you have to kind of decide how glued to that calculator are you. If you can't do 4 times 3 without a calculator, you might want to go to your ACT. When I say more advanced math concepts, we're talking higher end Algebra 2 and geometry. We're still not talking about anything above Algebra 2. Okay? It just has more geometry and more Algebra 2 on it. All right. Last difference, your ACT is more of a big picture exam. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, the college admissions officers, they're gonna look at your SAT score separately, okay? So say your math score really shines. You got a great math score, but your verbal, not so much. But say you're going into engineering. They're gonna look at that and go, I don't care about the verbal. We just want them for the math. Okay, so if you're really trying to let one score shine because that's the field you're going into, then your SAT is a better test for you. Okay, but your ACT, they only get one number. They only get your composite. So your ACT, you can be weak in one area only, but you got to be good in the other 3, or that composite number is going to drop like a rock. Okay, so you have to be a pretty well-rounded student to score well on your ACT. And then your SAT benefits you if you got one thing you want to shine off. Okay, but bottom line here, guys, take both. Your brain is going to prefer one test over the other, and until you take both, we don't know which one your brain's going to like better. The trend is that if you're a math and science person, your ACT is better. If you're an English and reading person, your SAT is better. But that's not 100% of the time. Every once in a while, somebody comes along that defies the trend. Okay, now once you've taken both, there's a handy-dandy chart. This is not directly in your packet, it's attached to your packet. Okay, it's like a couple pages into your packet after the staple. There's a blue and red chart. Too far, back up. There you go, right there. Okay. So go past it. Let me find it. I got you. A couple more pages. Right there. Okay. So once you've taken both of these, you can chart what your SAT score is and what your ACT score is and see where your brain falls. Okay, so let's say you take the SAT and you get about an 1100. But you take the ACT, you only get a 16. Well, if we plot where that's at, those meet up here solidly in the blue area, so your brain is an SAT brain. Okay? But let's do this again. Let's say again you have an 1100 on your SAT, but let's say you took the ACT, you knocked it out of the water, you got 29. If we plot those, now you're solidly over here in the red, and you have an ACT brain. Okay? So this chart's going to let you tell which test is better for your brain. Okay? Now, if you wind up in this gray area, this judgment call, sorry about your luck. Okay? Your brain's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't like either one. So if you wind up in that gray area, testing is a lot about attitude. If you're in that gray area and you're like, you know what, I really hated the ACT when I took it, don't take it again. Just go with the SAT. Okay? Testing is a lot about attitude. Go with the one that you like better or hated the least. Your choice. Okay? All right. This next slide, this is not in your packet, but I wanted to show you. This is showing you which test is more popular by state. Okay? The orange is SAT. The blue or purplish one is ACT. Okay? So it really is all about where you live. So you can see kind of where College Board is kind of embedded in the country. That's where, and they started up here in the Northeast somewhere, I don't remember what state. That's where your SAT is, where you take the PSAT. Where I grew up over here, kind of on the border of Illinois and Iowa, I took the PACT in school. I took the ACT in school. I had to drive an hour and a half one way to take the SAT. Okay? Indiana is orange because of Notre Dame. For years, Notre Dame would only take the SAT. That's why they're orange. Otherwise, they would probably be purple or blue. Colleges throughout the country now don't care. You can take either test. It doesn't matter. There's a couple little holdouts up in upstate New York that will only take the SAT, but they're over $100,000 a year. If you're going to there, you ain't coming to me for SAT prep. Okay? So again, just wanted to give you kind of a graphic of why you don't hear about the ACT where we're at. Okay. Back to your main packet. We're going to talk about scoring. Okay, we're going to talk about SAT scoring first. This is on page 6. Don't shoot the messenger on this one, guys. So this is a little complicated. You get 200 to 800 points per topic. Now, the way that they arrive at this, and you have 2 topics. You got math and you got reading. Okay, let me get all of this up here, and then I'll explain what all of it means. Okay. You got 2 topics. You got math, and you've got your evidence-based reading and writing, which is a combination of your reading and your grammar. So they're going to take a raw score. Your raw score is basically the number you get right. Okay, so you get 52 right out of 58 in your reading section, whatever it is. They're going to scale that to something between 200 and 800 using a proportion. Basic math, no voodoo, nothing crazy at that point. Then they're going to perform some sort of a statistical analysis that they call equating, that they don't publish and won't tell us about. And they're going to, poof, arrive at your score. So let's talk about equating. Equating is their way of evening out the tests, okay? So if you've taken more than one SAT, you know that they can be really different. You know you can go in and take one test, and you're like, well, that wasn't so bad. And you go take the next one, and you're like, what was that witchcraft? Okay? You can have one that's really simple and one that's pretty hard. So their way of evening it out is this statistic process that they call equating. So basically what it is let's say you take the test in March. So you take the test in March. Now they're going to look at that test in March and they're going to compare it to all the tests they've given so far that year and all the tests that they're going to give for the rest of the year that they haven't given yet. And they're going to decide if that test is easier or harder than all those other tests. If they think it's easier, they're going to subtract points from your score. If they think it's harder, they're going to add points to your score. The amount they add or subtract is based on this equating process that they don't publish and won't tell us about. Okay? I've seen it be as much as minus 60. Now, how do we know what the equating is for a test? Okay, this is how we know. You got to find somebody like me who's a complete geek and has no life. Anybody know what Reddit is? Excellent. I love being, oh, my fellow geeks, thank you. Okay, so, beautiful. Reddit, for those who don't know, is the end of the internet. This is a message board system that was around before the internet existed. And all of us who were geeks before the internet was a thing hung out on Reddit. Okay, and it has morphed into this giant, wonderful world of geekdom. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. They're the ones that, remember GameStop? Remember the whole GameStop stock thing? Okay, they're the ones that did that. They're the ones that organized all that. But anyway, I digress. So you find somebody like me who has no friends and hangs out on Reddit and is a member of 8 million tutor boards. And you got to find a kid that only missed one question. So I go on my tutor boards and I'm like, who's got a kid that missed one? What was their score? Okay, you should be able to miss one question and still get a perfect score on the SAT. However, if that one person didn't get a perfect score, if that one person, say, gets a 1540, then you know the equating was a minus 60. That's how you figure out the equating. We'll always know how much they're subtracting. We'll never know how much they add. Because if that person who only missed one still gets up 1600, then we don't know if they're adding or if the equating is 0. Okay? So that's just a beast that we have to deal with when it comes to the SAT, unfortunately. We have no control over it. Any questions on equating that I may or may not be able to answer? I'm waiting for that College Board defector. I want to know how they figure this out. Okay, super scoring is available. Anybody need me to explain super scoring? Okay, so the way super scoring works is like this. If you take multiple tests, they're going to take your best math score and your best reading score. It doesn't have to be on the same test. And they're going to put that together, and that's going to become your new score. Okay? Not all schools take super scoring. All schools in the state of Florida take super scoring. Bright Futures take super scoring. But not all schools take super scoring. So if you're looking at schools out of state, if you're looking at private colleges, always ask if they do super scoring. Make it a sense? All good? All right. So this is the paragraph about equating. I put this in your packet. It's the thing that's indented, so you can see what equating is. By the way, if you ask College Board about equating, if you call them and ask them about equating, they read you this paragraph. If you ask for a supervisor and ask them about equating, they read you this paragraph. If you email them and ask them about equating, they send you this paragraph. Not very helpful. Don't get very far. All right, ACT. Let's talk about ACT scoring. This is easy. I like easy. Okay. So ACT, they scale everything to 36. You got 4 different topics: English, math, reading, and science. The way they do this, they take your raw score for each section, and then it's scaled up. So let's say you got, or it's scaled down in some cases. Let's say you got 28 out of 40 right. They're going to do a basic proportion. 28 out of 40 equals x out of 36. They're going to cross multiply, solve for x. Boom, that's your score out of 36. Okay, again, no voodoo, easy, okay? So you wind up with that's going to be your score for that section. They're going to do that 4 times, once for each section, and then they're going to average them together, add together, divide by 4. That's your score. Done. Okay? Very straightforward. Your science section is curved. It's only curved over the students who took the same test on the same day, and it's a bell curve, which means it can only help you. It will never hurt you, and it's published on their website. It's usually like 1 to 2 points, so don't count on it for much. Okay. Any questions on this? Okay, super scoring for your ACT is now available. That's a new thing as of September 2020, I think. So they did start doing super scoring. So again, they're going to take the best score out of each of the 4 sections, put them together, divide by 4, and that's your new ACT score. So if you take it multiple times, that's the way super scoring works. And again, all your schools in the state of Florida and your Bright Futures take super scoring for your ACT. All right. I hate this question. What's a good score? Oh, God. All right, so good and bad are relative, guys. Definitely relative. I had a student who was severely dyslexic, okay? When he broke 1,000, we were dancing. That was beautiful. I had another student who went to Strawberry Crest IB. When he only got 1,000, we were like, what happened to you? Okay? Because again, we were expecting more out of that person. Okay? So as far as what's a good and bad score, it depends on two things. What type of student you are and where you're going. Okay? So let's just look at some metrics real quick. So let's look at these guys. This is page 7 of your packet, by the way. So as far as your ACT, your national average, your composite score, your national average is a 20.3. The state of Florida, for the first time since I've been doing this, we are above the national average. Yes, it's only 1/10, but man, we're going to celebrate that, okay? We'll take the win any way we can get it. That's the first time since I've been doing this that's that way. As far as good and bad, again, the bottom 28% is a 16 or lower. So if you're at a 16 or lower, that means we got some work to do. We got to fix it. Your top 26% is a 24 and above. So if you're in that 24 and above category, you're in pretty good shape. As far as your SAT scores, your national average is a 1060. Your Florida average is a 993. This is a little more normal for Florida. We're usually behind the curve by about 60 to 70 points. So this is a little more normal. Your bottom 25% is an 890. So again, if you're in that 890 category or lower, we've got work to do. Okay, I've had students come to me with combined scores in the 700s, like 750, 770. Combined scores when you put both sections together. So it's not unheard of to be this number or lower. Your top 25% is a 1210. So if you're at 1210 or above, you're doing pretty darn good. In fact, if you're at 1210, you got your 75% bright futures. Okay, so again, relative, it's all relative. Okay, so before we talk about improving your score, let's take one more minute about good and bad scores. So I said it depends on the type of student you are. It also depends on where you're going, okay? If you get like a 1300 or a 1330, you're into any Florida school you want to go to, with the possible exception of the Gators because of that quota thing. But MIT is not going to talk to you. So it really does depend on what school you want to go to as far as what's a good and bad score. Okay, make sense? All right, let's talk about improving your score. Because that's why you guys are here. So first of all, you're going to take the test. Okay? The best way to improve your score is to take the test and take it often. Rule used to be 3 and done. Take the test 3 times, you're not going to get any better, you're done. Not true anymore. Okay? As tutors, we're seeing students take the test 8, 9 times. It's pretty normal. Colleges don't care. They don't care that you're taking it that many times, especially in the state of Florida. They know you're going for that bright futures number. Okay? They're not worried about it. So don't be afraid to take it multiple times. Not a big deal. There is a limit on the ACT. You're not allowed to take the ACT more than 12 times in one calendar year. If you're taking it more than 12 times in one calendar year, that means you're traveling internationally to take the test, and we may have to talk because you have a problem. All right, take a prep class. Take multiple prep classes. Just because you're working with me doesn't mean that you shouldn't work with somebody else. Anybody who tells you that my way is the only way, walk away from them, okay? You're going to find that there'll be things in this program that will work for you. There'll be things in other programs that will work for you as well. Pick and choose from each program the things that work from you and put your own ways together, okay? Take advantage of free resources. I'm going to give you more of those later, but definitely take advantage of free resources. I think I listed a bunch out in your packet. Khan Academy is one of the ones that I listed there. I want to give you a word of caution about Khan Academy. Their English and reading resources are amazing. Absolutely use them. Their math resources are out of date. They're using questions from before the 2016 revamp on the SAT, which aggravates me because College Board recommends them. But yeah, don't use their stuff when it comes to math because they're using old questions, they're using concepts that are no longer on the test. Ignore their math stuff, but use their English and reading. Okay? I listed a bunch of other free resources there for you. Know the structure of the test. We kind of already talked about this in terms of the reading and with the questions being in the order. If you know the structure of the test, that's going to help you to do better on the test. And that's going to come with time and practice. Okay? The more you practice the test, the more familiar you're going to get with the way the test is structured. Build your vocab. We already talked about that. Use process of elimination. For every one right answer, if you're on the SAT, for every one right answer, you got 3 wrong answers. If you're on the ACT, for every one right answer, you got 4 wrong answers. So here's your example. Who was the 13th president of the United States? Well, there's your choices. Because I don't know who the 13th president of the United States was if you walked up to me and asked me that on the street. I got no clue. But who can I eliminate? Who is definitely not the 13th president of the United States? Yeah, let's hope it's not Tom Brady, right? Okay, so B is out of here. What else can we get rid of? Obama, yeah, he was too late to be the 13th. Who else? Washington was too early, so we're left with Millard Fillmore or Joseph Stalin. Who was Stalin? Yeah, he was Russian, right? Okay, so he was a Russian dictator during World War II, so we're going to get rid of him. So it's got to be our buddy here, Millard Fillmore, that nobody's ever heard of. Must have been a peacetime president. So yeah, it's this guy right here. It's got to be Millard Fillmore. Again, process of elimination. We can figure that out. Okay, process of elimination is going to be really important in our grammar section, by the way, when we do punctuation. Make this an everyday routine. How are you going to do that? Well, you're going to do that with your phone apps. Okay? So the phone apps I recommend, and I think I list these later in your packet for you, but the phone apps that I recommend are from Varsity Tutors. They have amazing apps. They have tons of them on the market for like every single AP topic that's out there. But they also make an SAT and an ACT question of the day app. Okay, so Varsity Tutors, SAT and ACT prep. And again, I think I list them somewhere else in your packet, but those are the ones I want you to get and install on your phone. They're available for Android and for Apple. They're free. Well, there's a free version and a paid version. Get the free version, guys. The only difference is ads. Who cares about ads? So get the free version. Once you get the app loaded on your phone, all you have to do is go in there and say, yes, please send me a question every day. It's going to shoot you a question every day to your phone. If you have SAT and ACT, it's going to shoot you one of each. Okay? So when it gets you the question, you answer the question. If you get it right, great. If you get it wrong, it's going to give you an explanation in English, not SATs. Now, what does that do for you? That's going to make your brain switch into thinking differently mode. So now every single day, your brain is switching into thinking differently mode. So on test day, it's easier for your brain to switch into thinking differently mode. Okay, it's a subconscious thing. It works great. It takes you 2 minutes every day. Okay. Varsity Tutors. I have it listed somewhere in there. I think it might be toward the end of the packet. Let me see if I have an extra copy here. I can tell you what page it's on. Hang on. Under resources on page 10, on page 10 at the bottom, under phone apps, under resources. That's where it is. Yep. And if you can't find them, let me know and I'll give you links. Okay? But they should be available both for Apple and Android. If you can't find them in the iStore or whatever they call the Apple Store or in Google Play, you can go to Varsity Tutors' website and get them straight from the website. Okay, so that's an everyday routine. Again, use those apps. It'll help you out. Get a prep book. Well, that's why I told you to get the Princeton Review. Okay? Princeton Review by far are my favorite. They're the most, to me, I think you get the most bang for your buck. All right? And these are the ones that I suggest you get, which are these big mother hunkin' books right here. We are not going to work through this whole thing. There is no way. Okay? In fact, in class, what you're going to get from me are packets. Your homework comes out of these. Okay? You get my prep program, not theirs. You're going to get my prep program, but the homework comes out of these books. What's nice about the Princeton Review books is that, yes, you have all these lessons up front, but these gray pages in the back, these are all practice tests. And they're real practice tests. They're not the practice ones that College Board provides to Khan Academy. These are actual retired tests. So you get the real thing. They also come with full explanations for each question. Which is another reason I like them. So get a prep book. Again, those are the ones I recommend. If you're doing SAT and ACT, you need one of each. Siblings, if you guys can share, if you're comfortable with that. If you'd rather have one apiece, that's fine too. And then practice. The more practice you do, the better off you are. I think that's pretty obvious. Okay, when should you take the test? Your PSAT or PA, I don't think they even offer the PACT anywhere near here, but your PSAT is the one that counts is in the fall of your junior year, okay? This only counts for National Merit Scholarship. To be a National Merit finalist, you have to be something in the top 0.5% of the top 1%, and then you get invited to apply to a panel who may or may not choose you. So the odds of you actually getting selected for a National Merit Scholarship, pretty low. Okay, so really what does this count for? Not much. It's practice, guys. It's practice. Okay. I had one person that got to be a finalist, but then didn't get chosen by the committee. That's as far as we've gotten on that. Your SAT and ACT, the spring of your junior year is when you take the free one in school. You really ought to start sooner if you can, okay? This is kind of putting yourself behind the 8 ball if you start at that point. If you have already waited till here to start, it is what it is, guys. We're going to work on it. We'll do what we can. It's all right. That's why you're here. You're making a difference. In your packet, I put your test dates and your registration deadlines just so you have it all in one place. And then I also put how you can register for the test. ACT is through act.org. SAT, of course, is through College Board. Little miscellaneous info, that's on your next page, which is page 10. It's just what to bring on test day and what not to bring on test day. I think it's fairly obvious. You can read through it. I'm not going to go through it. As far as calculators, let's talk about that real quick. John, what calculator are you using? What do you have? Do you have a TI graphing or are you scientific? The graphing, is it a TI or is it a Casio? TI? What are you using, sir? You don't have one right now? Okay, are you going to do graphing or scientific? It doesn't matter. You'll do a graphing, get a TI, do not get a Casio. Okay? I have Casio at home. It kills me. Please get a TI. What about you guys? What do you have? Okay. Same? Beautiful. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, graphing or scientific is fine. Those are all perfectly legit for both tests, SAT and ACT. They're fine. Yeah. Like if you have to buy one, don't buy a Casio. All right. But yeah, what to bring on test day, what not to bring on test day, again, is pretty obvious. Resources, please use me. Whether you're working with me or not, if you have questions, please ask. If I don't know the answer, I will tell you I don't know, but I will find out. Okay? The library is actually an amazing resource. Their printed materials are horribly out of date. However, go online with your library card, actually log into their system, and there's a bunch of SAT practice materials. So you have to log in first in order to see them, but they are there. And of course, it's free. The phone apps, we've already talked about, that's Varsity Tutors. Prep books, again, Princeton Review, best bang for your buck. If you are in the, I already have a 1400 and I am looking for a 1600 perfect score category, then the prep books you want is the College Panda. Dumb name, brilliant guy, but dumb name. So the College Panda is what you want for that if you're in that really upper tier. Helpful websites, I gave you a list there. Make sure you stick to the free areas. Most of those websites are split into free areas and paid areas. Stick in the free areas. Okay, let's talk about need scores. So this is on page 11. Let's talk about Bright Futures. So there's 3 different scholarship levels. Is anybody doing vocational stuff like welding, carpentry, anything like that? No. Okay. All right. Then we're going to skip that level. Okay. So the first level we're going to talk about is the big boy. So the big one is your 100% tuition and fees. This used to come with a $300 book stipend. It doesn't come with that anymore. They nixed that in, I think, 2021. So this is between 2021 or after. It's going to require a weighted GPA of 3.5. That's not usually the problem. Most students can handle a weighted GPA of 3.5. Your ACT composite score needs to be in the 89th percentile. So does your SAT. So that's the way the law was written. If you guys have older siblings, or if you remember a few years ago, the requirements for Bright Futures went up. When that happened, it's not that scores went up. What happened was they rewrote the law and this percentile went up. Okay? So the 89th percentile has actually been sitting at a 29 for your ACT and a 1330 for your SAT for like the last 12, 13 years. So these numbers, the 89th percentile, hasn't changed. What changed was the way the law was written. This went up. Okay? So could these numbers go up again? The 89th percentile, I think, will stick at a 29 and a 1330. I don't think those are going to change on us. The only way that this could go up is if the legislature changes this number. If they come back and say, nope, for 100%, it's going to be a 91st percentile, or it's going to be the 95th percentile. Okay, that's the only way that these could go up. Now, they have to pass this every single year. Okay, I don't see them changing this anytime soon. The last time they tried to change it, it wasn't pretty. So I don't see them messing with this anytime soon. I think we're probably as high as we're going to go for a while. Okay, so 29 for your ACT or a 1330 for your SAT. Either one will qualify you. And then you need 100 volunteer service hours. If you need help with this, tell me. I run a 501c3. We make and deliver pillowcases to children in the hospital every month. I have to do 1,200 pillowcases every single month at 10 Bay Area hospitals. I need them all washed, ironed, and bagged, which means you can earn service hours at home while you're watching Netflix. Okay? All right. So again, if you need help with that, you let me know. I'll bring you pillowcases to wash, iron, and bag for me. All right. So that's the big boy. Okay, your next one down is your Florida Medallion Scholars. This is your 75% tuition. Your GPA needs to be a 3.0, and then you have to have everything in the 75th percentile. So for 2021, that was a 25 on your ACT or a 1210 on your SAT, and then 75 service hours. Now, what's kind of cool about this was that in 2021, the legislature said, you know what, if you get this and you decide to go to a community college, we're going to cover your tuition 100%. Okay? So, let's say you're like, man, I really want to go to FSU. And let's say you don't get in. And you decide to go to the community college up there that's the feeder school into FSU. That's a community college. Let's say you have this guy. That's going to cover your tuition 100% at that feeder college until you go to FSU, and then it'll cover it 75%. Okay? So do you see how to kind of work the system on that one? Okay. So we can kind of play that game and get you a little extra money. Okay. Third level is that vocational thing, which we don't need to look at. Florida State Schools. This is not in your packet. Everybody thinks of the big boys. Okay? They think of UF, they think of FSU, they think of UCF, they think of USF. They don't think of some of the little guys, right? New College of Florida, Lake Sumter State College. But all of these are available to go for Bright Futures. University of Northern Florida, I had a student just go there last year. They absolutely love it. What's the other one? Gulf Coast is another one. There's quite a few out there that, and there's actually a whole list of, like, this is not even a full list. I think there's over 28 or 38 Florida State schools that are Bright Futures optional. So make sure you check out other places other than the big guys, okay? Because there's a lot of places where you can use this money. All right. Anybody need this for your 10th grade reading? Is anybody not done with your 10th grade reading FSA? Okay, cool. How about your Algebra 1 EOC? Anybody need this as an alternative for that? Okay, don't have to worry about that then. College entrance. So, this is not in your packet. What we want to do is look at Compass Prep 360. So, it's not in your staple packet. We're done with the staple packet, okay? The rest of the staple packet is about the digital SAT, which isn't going to apply to you guys. So we're not going to mess with it because you all will be graduating before it takes effect. So in your Spiffy Diffy packet, find the competitive landscape. It looks like this. Find that guy. Okay. All right. So we've talked about before how we're seeing students not get accepted, even though they meet the cutoff score that colleges publish. That's happening because we have too many students applying to schools. So even though you meet their cutoff score, even though you meet all their requirements, they're still going, yes, you met our cutoff score, but we have all these people above you. So we're going to take those people above you instead of taking you, even though you've met our cutoff score. So instead of looking at a cutoff score to see if you're going to get in, you're better off to look at what people who are actually going to the school, what they actually got. That's a better metric. And you want to aim between the 25th and 75th percentile. So you're looking to aim for the middle 50% of the kids going to that school. And that's what that document in front of you is about. This is called Compass Prep 360. It's a way to find the scores. You can also check with your school admissions office to get those numbers. So this is a page out of Compass Prep 360. This is actually an older copy, but I really didn't want to redo this slide, so I was being lazy on this one. So let's look up Florida State University. Okay, so these are alphabetical by order, alphabetical in order, whatever the proper preposition there is. So look up Florida State University. So if I look up Florida State University, these numbers are not going to match because remember this is an older edition that I have up here on the board. If I look at the SAT score, the 25th to 75th percentile, it should say 1230 to 1350, right? So to guarantee that you're going to get into Florida State, if you want to go to FSU, you need to be between 1230 and 1350 on your SAT. On your ACT, you need to be between 27 and 31, okay? Do you guys see how to use this document? Okay. And again, you can look up a ton of different schools this way. There's a lot of them in here. Right. Yeah, you can also see the percent submitted as far as how many people are submitting your SAT versus how many people are submitting the ACT. You can also see the admit rates. I'm curious. I have not looked at University of Florida. What is the University of Florida's admit rate? Because I'm kind of curious about that. 37%. Yep, 37% for UF. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, I'm sure. Well, and what's weird is they don't have a quota system. It's just UF that has that quota system. Okay, so that's how to use this document. Something else I gave you in your packet was worksheets. So if you want to get like super organized about what score I really need, I gave you an SAT target worksheet and an ACT target worksheet. Ignore on your SAT, ignore that it says out of 2,400. It's an old worksheet. I didn't make it, I stole it. So it should be out of 1,600. But something you can do is, like, say you wanted to go to Fordham University. I don't even know where that is. You could take the numbers, the 1250 and the 1430, which are your 25th to 75th percentile. So again, this is the middle 50% of the kids that are going there. And you could put that in your 25th and 75th percentile for your SAT, your 28 to 32 over here, your 25th and 75th for your ACT, and list the school name. And you could do that for all the schools you want to go to, and then average them out and be like, okay, overall average, this is what I need. This is my score. This is the score I'm shooting for. And it would at least give you an idea of what you really need to get in. Okay? Again, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do these worksheets, but it's a way for you to get organized. Okay. Something else that's in your packet, if the school that you want to go to is not in this document, there's one that says homework day 1 at the top, instructions for finding the 25th and 75th percentiles at school. This is not homework, guys. This is optional. If you want to do it, that's fine, but you don't have to. This is instructions on how to find schools that are not in this Compass Prep 360 document. Okay. All right, any questions about that so far? Okay. All right, the other stuff that's in your packet, you have your current SAT fees and services all in one place and your current ACT fees and services all in one place. Those are the last 2 pages. And then I also gave you a couple supplemental handouts on Bright Futures. And then I have a few slides on the digital SAT, but again, this isn't going to affect any of you guys, so I don't think we really need to go over it. What was 40 before? Yeah. Yeah, it's gone way up. Yeah, it's gone way up. It goes up every year. It was 55 last year. It's gone to 60. Yeah. Yeah, it keeps going up year after year. Okay. The other thing I have to give to you guys is your syllabus. This is going to depend on the year, the edition of the books that you have. What edition do you have, John? The 2022? Okay. Okay, then your page numbers are not going to be right for your ACT book. Okay. Let me look and see if I have a 2019 edition at home. If I do, I can adjust your page numbers. Okay? So this is your syllabus. This is for your 2022 books, okay? What year do you have, sir? 2021? I gotcha. That I have. That's your 2021. Did I give you the right one? No, hold on. Yeah, 22 books. Yeah, you're fine. Okay. And you have 2022. Okay. I'm going to give you... Right. I can print you a 2020 edition. I'm going to give you this for now just so you have dates. But I'm going to print you a 2020 edition for the SAT. Still not doing the ACT, right? Okay. Okay. So you might, depending upon which edition of the ACT you get, you might still need this for ACT. Okay. So you'll need this one for your ACT because this is your 2022 for your ACT. For your SAT, I will print you a 2020 edition syllabus. Okay. I should have that.
This is for 2022 for SAT too, right?
Right. That's for both. Yeah. Yeah. But I'll give you the 2021. So use the 20. You're just gonna have to. Yeah. You're just gonna have to use the 20. Yes, the 2020 syllabus. I should have said 2020 syllabus instead of 2020. That one. Yeah. 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 Poor English on my part.
I mean, once you see how they're doing, like after people like at the end, if you let us know after, like, what do you think? Because for our older son, we just do the SAT.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So you let us know what you suggest and I'll do
Gotcha.
SAT definitely.
ACT.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll probably depend on the math skills is always the big one. So, okay. So syllabus, I just want to talk to you a little bit about your syllabus and then a little bit about class policies and we'll be good to go. Okay. Let me write real quick myself a note. So John needs 2019 ACT, right? Okay. I'm pretty sure I have that somewhere. I think somebody last class had 2019. Okay. So your syllabus is, I'm hoping it's pretty straightforward. I tried to make it as easy as I could. Obviously, we have the the dates on the one side, the dates and times, and then your homework is on the other column, on the other side of the page. You have a lot of homework, okay? But if you don't practice, you won't do well. That's why you have a lot of homework, okay? You also have supplemental homework in the middle. So once we start hitting math, I couldn't fit all the math in that one column. So once we start hitting math, you have supplemental math homework as well in the middle column. Okay? So please make note of that. We do not check homework in class. You are provided with the answers to the homework. If it's homework out of the book, your answers are in the book. If it's homework out of the packets, that's emailed to you. Okay, so you will have answers. You need to check the answers on your own. Any answers out of the packet comes with the work provided, so you can see how I got my answers. Okay? If you have questions, that's what that first 10 to 15 minutes of class is for. Ask me. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm also available to you by email and text outside of when we meet. There's no charge for that. Okay? That first class that we meet, that first Tuesday, we're going to talk schedules. There aren't that many of you. So let's find a time that's going to be good for us. And we'll set up a Zoom session that's going to be a drop-in session. Okay? Where I'm just going to be online, and if you have questions, you can drop it and ask me. And that'll be a weekly thing. Again, free, no charge. Okay? But even if you can't meet that, if we find a time where everybody but one person can be there, I'm still available to you at other times. All you have to do is text me or email me or call me. Okay? Any questions on homework and what's expected of you? Okay. That homework where you see the homework assigned, that's the homework that's assigned that day. So it's not due that day, it's assigned that day. It's due the next session. Okay. The back of your syllabus is just more resources. Again, it's kind of a reprint of what's already in your info packet. And then the next page is your class policies and procedures. Attendance is mandatory. If you're going to miss class, just let me know so I don't worry about you. I had one kid almost die in a car accident on the way here one time. Okay? Freaked me out that she wasn't here. So just message me if you're sick or you're going to miss class or something so I don't worry about you. Okay? It's not a big deal. If you miss class, that's why we record it. Okay? I get the recordings processed and upload hopefully the same day. Okay? We have class from 6 to 8 at night. I'm going to try to get them done when I get home at night, guys. But it may be the next morning. Okay? It depends on how exhausted I get by the time I get out of here. They do take about 2 hours to actually process and upload. So it depends on how late I want to stay up that night. So it may be the next morning by the time I get them processed, uploaded, and emailed out to you. You do get a copy of the recording every single class. So that way if there's something you missed during class, if you kind of zoned out for a minute, you can rewatch it. Okay? Homework-wise, we already talked about that. Disruptive behavior, I've only ever had to ask one person to leave for disruptive behavior. And that person, I swear to God, everything, what does this have to do with being a Disney princess? What does it have to do with being I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, okay, I'm done with you. See ya. That's the only person I've ever had to ask to leave. I was like, you are special. And then payment options are down there at the bottom. All right.